guys, Bilbo10000 here, bringing you another episode of Rate Their Chances, the series where we rate the chances for potential newcomers making it into the base roster for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, inspired by the thread of the same name over on Smashboards, which you can find in the description. If you haven't checked the previous episodes in the series, click the card in the top right corner, or you can check the handy dandy spreadsheet in the description for all the current rates and re-rates. So Rate Their Chances is going back to one episode a week now, as we're starting to hit the point where characters are being suggested, but the chances for characters are getting much lower due to confirmation and statements from Sakurai. In a recent column translated by Source Gaming, which you guys can find in the description, Sakurai said, "I referred to the Smash ballot when selecting characters this time." That is a death sentence for over half of the currently speculated characters, but that won't stop me from talking about these different characters anyway. It's not just my job to rate characters, but also to talk about the idea of these characters. With that being said, today's 5 characters are the Masked Man from the Mother franchise, suggested by Mordecai, Glass Joe as an Echo Fighter of Little Mac from the Punch-Out franchise, suggested by Master Koga, Hat Kid from A Hat in Time, suggested by Sean McCool, Azura from Fire Emblem Fates, suggested by Dylan Borger, and Gengar from the Pokemon franchise, suggested by Mr. Cuddles. What do you guys think of these characters? Leave your thoughts on the comments below, and suggest more characters that you'd like to see me discuss next week. Without further ado, let's begin. The Mother franchise is finished. The creator is fine with the series, and it has ended. It's been ended since pre-Brawl. With that in mind, the Mother representation in Smash has also not changed since those days. So keeping that in mind, would we even get another Mother character? The Masked Man is a primary antagonist and the final boss of Mother 3, who uses not just his immense PSI powers, but also a lightning sword that can cut through his foes, as well as a literal cannon attached to his hand. He's a human chimera and a powerful force, and would represent a villain of the Mother franchise extremely well, the only other real options being Gygas's original form in Mother 1 and Porky Minch. As far as a moveset goes, he's more versatile than Ness or Lucas, as he has other weapons and gadgets that help to differentiate him from the 2 Mother reps we already have. He's got a jetpack for his recovery, he's a speedy character who can lunge at his foes, and while I'm not terribly knowledgeable about the Mother franchise, I imagine he could use some sort of PSI attack for his final Smash. However, for Smash 5, is he likely? I don't think so. The Smash ballot is confirmed to be where Sakurai is looking when it comes to newcomers in this game, and I assume there will be some exceptions here and there, but Mother isn't a franchise that is strong enough or relevant enough to make that exception. Masked Man would need ballot support to stand a chance, and yeah, it's not looking good. Down below in the description is an exit poll spreadsheet that polls around 40,000 votes that happened back in summer of 2015. And while not completely foolproof, it is a trustworthy source, given 5 of the top 10 characters made it in, while 1 was made as an assist trophy. But looking at these polls, Masked Man isn't listed. He's under the All Others category and simply had no presence. Recently, there has been a lot of Mother outcry from fans, so perhaps DLC could be their chance to get a new Mother rep, but I have to give Masked Man a 1% chance score. I won't write him off completely because he's a major character in his franchise and he has his fans, but they weren't vocal enough during the time with the ballot, and due to Mother 3 never getting an official localization in the West, his widespread appeal is lessened. As for a want score, I'll give him a 60%. I'd like to see a different type of Mother rep. The question is whether it's worth giving a franchise with no future another player. We're back to Echo Fighters, I see. Glass Joe, the first opponent you ever face in Punch-Out games, is a weak individual who has only ever won a single fight, and even then it was an accident. This is the sort of guy who really shouldn't be let into the ring, but you have to admire his determination to stick it out for as long as he has. The commenter who suggested Glass Joe never specified if he'd be unique or an Echo, but I'd say Glass Joe doesn't have any skills of his own to really differentiate himself, hence why I believe he'd be a Little Mac clone fighter. He's a boxer, has the same frame as Little Mac, and could very easily adopt Mac's moveset to fight in Smash. The real question though isn't if Glass Joe could work in Smash, we know he can. The real questions are whether there is an actual demand for this character, and whether Punch-Out is a priority for a new character, even if that character is an Echo. The last Punch-Out game was on the Wii, 2 console generations ago. Now, if you're a new franchise getting your first ever character, that's fine, but when you've got a character in Smash already, getting a second playable character I think requires your franchise to have more of a future. Every franchise that has had more than one character has either had future games or recently released games as of that character's inclusion. Except Punch-Out, and that is not a good sign for Glass Joe. His popularity really only spiked after Echo Fighters were revealed because people started thinking about who could echo who. The irony is, all Echo Fighters were probably chosen by the time of E3, so our post-E3 speculation doesn't change the situation at all. Glass Joe had no presence on the ballot as far as polling goes, and I don't see many people clamoring for a new Punch-Out rep like they do other franchises. With this in mind, even though Glass Joe is fine as a character, his franchise and its relevancy holds him back, leaving him with a 5% chance score. Echo Fighters normally have more of a shot than Unique Fighters since there's less of a precedent they have to meet, but even so, Glass Joe is fighting all the odds as usual to make it in. As for a want score, 10%. I personally don't see the need for another Punch-Out rep. I'd rather get an ARMS character than another generic boxer myself, even though there's not much chance of that happening either. I'm starting this segment off by stating 0%. Hat Kid will not be in Smash's base roster. The game came out in October 2017 as an indie-developed platformer with no ties to Nintendo or Smash aside from inspiration as a whole when it first came out. The only reason I'm rating this character is to make a point. Hat Kid was not around for the Smash ballot, was not a character that Nintendo would have on their radar, and is not from a company that has business ties with Nintendo aside from a single port that was just recently announced for the Switch. Hat Kid is technically a third-party character. Looking at other third parties we have, Hat Kid stands out for all the wrong reasons. Not well known, not an icon, not from a major company. People need to understand that some characters simply don't have what it takes at this time to get onto the roster. With that in mind though, I do want to talk about Hat Kid as a potential fighter for future reference one day. Coming from a platformer, Hat Kid has a variety of techniques at her disposal to battle, including her hat, umbrella, and even her scooter. She can use a dive, have a down special like Kirby's where she uses her ice hat to slam into her foes as an ice sculpture, and she's got personality to boot. Being from a platformer, she'd have various ideas for a stage, and with a Hat in Time's visual style, I'd be intrigued to see what they could come up with. But as I said, characters from 2017 indie games and beyond don't have a single shot. There are no playable indie characters in Smash right now. There is no precedent for it, and at this point the only ones with a real playable shot are Shantae and, at a stretch, Quote from Cave Story. As much as I'd love to see characters like Hat Kid or Ghost from Hollow Knight, it won't happen. And it's my job to be a realist here and say the stuff people don't want to hear. Hat Kid gets a 0% chance, but a want score of 50% chance. I'd be interested in what they could come up with, but realistically, not every character is made for Smash or for fighting, and Hat Kid is one of those characters that realistically will never be in Smash. Yep, another Fire Emblem character. I can already hear the screaming from the users who despise those sword-wielding Fire Emblem characters. Well, stop your screaming, because get this, Azura uses a lance. Azura is a songstress from Fire Emblem Fates and one of the game's main characters. She serves as an important character and unit in your army across all 3 paths of the game, being a strong-willed individual who seeks to follow Corrin down any path they choose to take. Azura, as I mentioned earlier, uses a lance, more specifically a Naginata, to battle opponents. As such, she already has a leg up over other Fire Emblem characters, as she uses a weapon that is not represented yet in Smash Bros. At all. even through other series. We have no lance wielders, and the range of the weapon could provide an interesting moveset. Azura also has the power of song, which can revive and boost allies, and from a story perspective, calm the raging dragon that is Corrin. She could use her songs to boost her own powers, similar to how Shulk uses the Monado to boost his own powers. Azura would definitely be more of a glass cannon character though. Dancers and songstresses are typically units with lower HP and defense, focused more on support than combat. On top of this, she also has the ability to manipulate water to a certain extent. It never affects gameplay in Fates, more so in cutscenes, but it's an element of power that Sakurai could use to elevate Azura's potential moveset even further. That being said, Fire Emblem Fates did not receive much praise during the ballot period, as at that point Fates hadn't been released to Western audiences. Just look at how Corrin was handled and met critically. Just based on the storm that came from the community after that incident, I think Azura was certainly weakened in chances by that. She may not have support on the ballot, but her game was released in Japan prior to the speculated timeframe the roster was created, so who knows at this point? Though we already have Chrom as an Echo Fighter of Roy, meaning Fire Emblem may not be getting any more fighters during this period given the memes surrounding Fire Emblem fighters and how many there are. I think it's fair to say another Fire Emblem character is low on the cards. As such, Azura gets a 10% chance score. I think of all the potential Fire Emblem reps, she's actually not in a bad spot. She's more likable than Corrin, but she lacks support, and more importantly, she's from the Fire Emblem game that divided the community. As for a want score, I'll give her an 85%. I'm always down for more Fire Emblem characters, and unique movesets are always a plus in my book. To end off today's video, we are looking at everyone's favourite Pokemon generation. Generation 1, because Gengar is here to play. We all know that the chances of Pokemon getting another character is probably pretty high. Behind Mario, it's Nintendo's best-selling franchise, and has had a newcomer in every game since Smash's inception, so much so that Greninja got in before X and Y were even released. To that end, many, myself included, believe we'll get a Gen 7 Pokemon, being one of the few picks for new fighters that bucks the trend of the Smash ballot. But there are a lot of people who would rather just get another Generation 1 Pokemon, and with the announcement of the Let's Go games, there are people out there convinced a Generation 1 Pokemon will somehow link Let's Go and Smash. A few months ago there was a rumoured leak that was debunked, which claimed Gengar would be playable, as the person developed Gengar's CGI trailer. It was proven false, however that leak managed to impress upon the community to the point where Gengar became the flavour of the week character, appearing in leaks and prediction lists. As a Pokemon goes, Gengar has a lot of options, being a Ghost-type Pokemon. He's got an easy Shadow Ball neutral attack, can use Shadow Sneak like Greninja, is known to float, so his recovery should be easy enough, is a fighter in Pokken, so there's already a precedent for his moveset, and of course his final smash would be his Mega Evolution. He's got a lot of options for a Pokemon and would be fun to play as. My main issue with Gengar is that it comes across as Gen 1 pandering, and as someone who has grown up with Pokemon and who has watched the series evolve, every time they try to cash in on the Gen 1 nostalgia, it gets less bearable each time. That original audience who played Gen 1 as kids, most of them don't play games and have moved on with their lives. Gen 3 and Gen 5 got completely shafted as far as playable Pokemon, and if Gen 7 ends up the same way, then I don't think it's a fair representation of Pokemon as a franchise in Smash. In my eyes, Gengar would be a perfect Pokeball Pokemon, and could use something like Lick to paralyze opponents. As well as this, I don't think his support was strong back in 2015, which is the most important time to have support as that's when the roster was probably first being conceived. With this in mind, Gengar gets a 5% chance. If any Pokemon from Gen 1 were to get a playable form, Gengar is one of the top Pokemon, as the original Ghost. That being said, the Pokemon Company will have a lot of clout when it comes to selecting what to represent in Smash Bros., and they will want to market whatever is relevant to them at the time. Gengar doesn't seem to have that at the moment. As for a want score, he gets a 60%, as I'd be okay with Gengar for DLC, but I'd like a Gen 7 or even a Gen 3 or 5 Pokemon first to fill some of the old gaps. Thank you very much everyone for watching this episode of Rate Their Chances. I hope you guys enjoyed. Coming up on Thursday, I'm going to be doing my top 10 Smash Brothers characters I like to play as, and on Saturday I'm going to be doing my top 5 video games of all time. So please consider checking out those countdowns and leaving a subscription so that you can see the next Rate Their Chances video next week when it comes out live. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I will see you guys next time, and goodbye.
Hey there guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed today's Rate Their Chances video. I'll be seeing you next week for another one. I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons. You can find them down below, and if you want to become a patron yourself, there is a button somewhere on the screen you can press. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time. Goodbye.